Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Karma Cards. I'm coming at you on Valentine's Day today. So you're probably going to see this after that, but it is a really interesting energy coming through today. Also, I got a new microphone, so I hope the sound on this video sounds incredible or at least better. So what little presents can I bring you today on Valentine's Day? Well, we're coming off of a higher solar storm. So we've been having solar storms the past few days. Today's Wednesday. We're coming down from a higher KP. We were up at 5, between 5 and 6, and you were probably feeling it. I've been getting the headaches this time. I don't love the headaches. I'd rather be tired, but I've gotten headaches and tired. So what about you? How are you handling this solar energy weather that's coming through? Also, the Schumann resonance has had a couple of timeline jumps this week. So hopefully, as we're going through all these upgrades, we're also going up into better and more aligned timelines. It's sort of a quieter energy. For those watching this, I'm sorry if my voice is really loud in this one because I'm not used to working with a microphone. I'm used to projecting my voice. So if I get really loud, that's why. I got to get used to a microphone. As far as astrology goes, we have got a major stellium happening in Aquarius. We've got the sun, which is how we want to be. We've got Mercury, which is the way that we're thinking. We've got Mars now, which is how we're taking action. And then Pluto, which is how we are empowering ourselves. And if you remember from the last karma cards, I was talking to you about Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto is about empowerment, but it has to purge what disempowers you. And so with Pluto in Aquarius on a personal level, what we're getting is, hey, the way you've been doing things isn't really working. It's time to find a new way to handle this, especially when it comes to ways of getting power or empowering ourselves. And so we're doing a lot of deep purging and cleaning. And now, added to that, Mars has joined the mix. Mars is how we take action. And so with Mars and Pluto together, now these are they're considered malefic planets because their energy can kind of go, feel heavy or be a little aggressive, both of them. And it's interesting because Mars rules Aries, Pluto rules Scorpio, but Mars used to be the ancient ruler of Scorpio. So there's a connection there. Now, Aries, right? Mars connected to Aries. Aries is about being dynamic, getting out there, just putting yourself out there, going and getting it, right? It's a really aggressive in terms of like, I am going to get what I want energy. And Scorpio, where Pluto rules, is the deep dive. I want the truth. I'm willing to go down layer and layer and layer till I get to the core of the truth. And I'm not afraid of going into the darkness to find what I need to find. So you get those two together and you can hear it. It's like, I want to be healed. I want a new way to do this. And I'm willing to go out and get it right now and go through whatever layer I have to go through to get to it. So there is this sort of intense energy over here about churning up what needs to be seen so I can get through it, so I can get to what I want. And then you've got the North Node in Aries, which is about the South. And then you've got Chiron in Aries in a conjunction as well. So we've got Mars and Pluto in a conjunction, and then Chiron in Aries. And that's all about healing yourself. So you get these two together and you can see there's just a lot coming up that wants to be healed. And that actually brings me into the message from the team, which is about dealing with your black holes. So what does that mean? What does it mean when our team says it's time to deal with your black holes? Because all of this energy together is saying there's something in you that has created a sort of it's in Japan, they would call it the hungry ghost. It's that thing that you feel like you need so bad and yet you can't get. And when my team talks about a black hole, they're talking about something that feels like it's missing from your life, something you feel like you don't have emotionally, whether it's enough respect, enough love, enough validation, you name it, whatever it is that feels like it's missing, enough support. I know that one gets to people, whatever it is that you feel like is missing in your life. One of the ways that we used to go and get that filled is we immediately seek outside of ourselves to go get it, right? So if we're feeling like we don't have enough love in our life, most people will venture out to go find that love, go find someone to love them. Now, the problem with that is it's a noble quest, right? It's intended to heal. That's what we're doing. We're not intending to do anything else but heal. I've got this hole and I want to fill it, and I'm going to go find what out there will fill it, whether it's the love, the validation, the support. Our intentions are to help ourselves. Our intentions are pure. However, we're walking around with a type of deficit. And when we're doing that, we are activating coping mechanisms and we are dealing with people in a way that comes from that empty space that needs to be filled. And we're looking for the right shaped person to fill that hole, right? So then we start looking for things like soulmates and twin flames, where we want to be completed. And my team is saying the time for this behavior is coming to an end. That doesn't work. It never worked. Just like the hungry ghost of the Japan mythology, right? The hungry ghost is a ghost that has an insatiable hunger and a bottomless stomach, but a pinhole for a mouth. So no matter how much it takes in, it never feels satiated. We need to look for the black hole in our energy and recognize that the time of filling it through some external means has come to an end, that it was never going to fulfill us in that way, nor could it ever, because this black hole represents a part of ourself that got relegated or turned off due to some kind of trauma in our lives. Now, maybe when you hear the word trauma, you're thinking, okay, this is going to be some big dramatic event in my life, and it's obvious what the trauma was, and that's where I was shut down. And you might look back and go, you know what? I've dealt with my major trauma, and I don't have that anymore, but I still have that feeling. And this is what we need to realize, is that whatever age that happened at, it was traumatic for us at the time, even if it was a small event. Perhaps you had gone to a parent and you were telling them something. I'm going to make up a scenario here just so we can kind of get our head around it. Let's say you're a little kid and you want to play piano on a professional level, right? And you're really interested in learning how to play piano. And when you go to tell your parent, the parent's is really busy. Maybe they're working on something really hard. Maybe they're highly invested in what they're doing. But you went to share this sort of like epiphany that you had about what you wanted to do with your life. And you got told, I can't talk about this right now. I'm really busy. Or something more important is going on. Maybe poor words were chosen, right? Something more important is going on. I have to focus on this. That's not important at this time. In that scenario, the child who was so alive and connected to something that had a sense of purpose to it and focused on it was hoping to be matched with that same awareness and wow, and where did this come from? Like wanted to have an engagement with someone who was present with them. And instead of getting that, they got dismissed. And when they were dismissed, they interpreted that to mean that this was a bad idea, or it wasn't important, or they weren't cared about, or they weren't supported. And it caused fragmentation to happen within themselves, where now this part wasn't good enough, right? It wasn't enough to get the support or the attention or the appreciation of the person that they sought it from. And so this space breaks off. It's almost like if you want to think of it like a crack in a mirror, and you get enough cracks and that shard will fall out, right? And so where the shard falls out in the mirror that represents us and our energy, that space becomes a black hole. And we're not connecting it necessarily. Maybe that person will think that, they'll interpret it and take it to mean, well, my dreams are dumb, or they're not important, or I'm not worthy of what I dream of. And so they have a hole there where they're constantly trying to fill it with validation so that they can feel their power again, so that they can feel that inspiration and feel and believe that they deserve to have what they want, that they're enough. But because it was connected to this one little moment where they got dismissed, there's a trauma there now. And that might not register as trauma to us when we're comparing it to highly traumatic events, but it nevertheless is a type of trauma, and that has created that hole. And so now that person moves forward in their life, and they're trying to fill that space by proving that they have value and proving that they are worthy or of their dreams or enough. And they're always seeking outside of themselves to get that validation need filled. This is the black hole they're walking around with. And the sad part is that no matter what validation they get, until that gets mended, until that gets repaired from within, they walk around with this hole. And so there are highly successful people out in the world who still have trauma from not being validated or supported when they needed it. And no matter how much they accomplish in their life, it never fills that hole, because now they're trying to fill it through external means. So whenever we're having a type of trauma like that creates a fracture or a fissure, the work is actually ours to do now. It is ours to go inward and find that peace. And this work is connected to going to the core of the issue. So remembering that moment when you wanted validation or approval or acceptance or love, and you didn't get it. And it's, you might have to do some work around forgiveness, forgiving yourself or the other person. But more than that, it's allowing yourself to recognize that you did deserve it in that moment. That whatever was denied from you there wasn't because of something lacking in you. It simply couldn't be delivered by that person. And it starts our journey of self-fulfillment, making sure that we are the source that gives ourselves permission, appreciation, validation, love, acceptance, and all those things that we're trying to get from other people. So today my team is saying, look for the black holes, or look for the shards of broken mirror. What is it you keep trying to get from other people? I know that I get hung up on approval all the time. It's like I'm always waiting to get approval to move on to the next part that I'd like to move into. And I find that I tend to struggle because I have people around me all the time who are like, oh, that sounds really cool. You should do it. There's approval right there. But it's not enough because I haven't given it to myself. So I'm always working on remembering that it's not outside of me that I'm seeking this approval. It's my own approval. It's my own appreciation, my own validation, my own recognition that I deserve it and I'm enough, that I constantly have to come back to. And the more we do that, the more we start to fill up that void. It's what's beautiful about filling it from within is that you find out it's not this empty, bottomless black hole like you thought. It's just the only resource that makes it whole is going inward and finding the missing piece and giving it to ourselves. I mean, there's so much in shadow work that is important. And a lot of times when we think about it, we think about dark aspects of ourselves, like things about ourselves, our personality, our past, that we're like, oh, that's bad. And I've got to separate from that. Anytime I was selfish, I've got to separate from that, right? And we think of that as our shadow. But really, our shadow also contains untapped things that we thought we couldn't have, things that we for whatever reason, told ourselves, maybe because someone else told us and we believed them, or maybe because we tried it and we couldn't get it right away. Like, for example, being good at a musical instrument, never been my strong suit, right? So telling myself I'm not good at a musical instrument would then break that ability within me and push it into the shadow region, meaning it's still there. It's just a resource I can't access because I've told myself I don't have it. So there's a lot of things that are in our shadow that are actually positive aspects to ourselves. Like, for if you're also, I do all my own tech, but I always say I'm not tech savvy, and that's kind of BS. And I have to call myself out on it. I'm calling myself out on my own show. That's what tough love looks like when you call yourself out on your own show. But I always talk about how I'm not tech savvy. I get overwhelmed by tech easily, and one of the ways I excuse that overwhelm is just saying I'm not a tech savvy person, which is not true. I'm just not comfortable there. And a big part of it is because I have broken with that aspect of myself that could be very advanced or feel comfortable there. And I've relegated it to shadow because I'm rejecting the part of me that could interface with technology and feel more confident about it. I've decided I'm not, so I pushed it back. Now, I think that the reason I do that is so that I don't have to deal with it, right? But unfortunately, in the work I do and at the level I'm working, it's me. I am my sound person. So proud of this microphone, you guys. I'm my sound person, I'm my lighting person, I'm my editor. I do all the things. And so it's really not helpful for me to continue to tell the story that I am not tech savvy, because it only harms me, right? It only makes me go into overwhelm or frustration faster because I deny the part of myself that can do this. So as I'm talking to you right now, I'm going to do that. I'm going to fill that void. I'm going to acknowledge that no, I can do this. I've been doing it for years. I'm really creative about how I do it because I want it to be like low a low bar to interaction with technology. So I have a very complicated, interesting way that I deliver these products to you because I'm trying to avoid getting into tech heavy areas. So my point is, it doesn't help me to continue to deny that I can do this. It only frustrates me and causes stress and tension, which I've been dealing with the last few days because of that story I tell. So my example of filling a black hole I carry would be to go into my shadow self, and as I'm doing now actually, and just admit and acknowledge that I can do this. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe I like to feel less responsible for it because it feels like less pressure. I'm going to have to dig around and figure out why I decided relegating it over there was a better task. I think it was because it could take the pressure off of me, if I'm honest. Like, that's what it feels like as I talk about it with you. But it's not helpful. And I am going to be faced with having to deal with that until I can acknowledge it and get over it. So the reason I bring this all up is because we're constantly being asked right now to get over it. Get over the story you're telling yourself about your lovability, about how people do or don't support you, about how who cares or no one cares, right? All of these stories that we're telling ourselves as a way to protect ourselves from something don't work anymore. And we will be triggered and we will be confronted because you've got to clear it. It's just any way that you're denying yourself from being whole is being pushed forward now for us to address. And so today they're simply saying, let's acknowledge where there's a black hole or a piece of the mirror missing. Why is it still there? And are you still trying to get it from outside of yourself? Are you still telling a story so that you can protect yourself from something or avoid something or resist something? It's not going to work anymore. And if you want to keep going forward, which I know you do, then you're going to be faced with it. Now we can go and look at it ourselves and sort of preempt and start the journey on our own, or we can just wait for it to be dropped in our lap. And don't worry, they're going to drop it in your lap. So you get a choice here. You can be proactive or just deal with it as it comes up. But it is what's coming up, and it is for your highest good. And it does feel better once you start recognizing this part of me cannot be nourished from outside of myself, but it has to be nourished from within. And you are 150% capable of doing that. You might need some extra support, which is okay, but you still can do this. And the time is now. So let's look at this week's karma cards. All right, if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I've got 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what's the message you've got for us this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers: a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel what kind of guidance are you looking for right now. Are you looking for how to take action, or are you looking to see how things resolve over the next week? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you're choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for February 14th through February 21st. And the flavor of this reading, we've got Uranus, the plot twist planet, which means surprise or unexpected events coming our way, unexpected things happening. In Scorpio, which is the sign of digging down to the truth. So if anybody was going to take us deep within to our shadow self, it would be Scorpio. In the 11th house, which is ruled by Aquarius, so again, that Aquarian energy coming through, which represents your future, your hopes and dreams, and the friends and support around you. All right, for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to stir up the situation by using the extraordinary power of prayer for humanity's sake. Remember, everything we're doing for ourselves has a ripple effect. Everything has a consequence. So when we are trying to get our needs met through external needs that ripples out, right? So the impact we're having on another person while we're trying to get them to fill this void creates a ripple in them, which then ripples out to someone else, and so on and so forth. Now we can create different, more positive ripples by asking that we are healed, asking that we get this, asking for help to fill this hole from within that we have open within ourselves. As we are doing this, we are changing the fabric and healing each other through releasing people from the need to fill this void in me. That impacts humanity. It really does. You know, a lot of times when we're focusing on our own healing work, we kind of think that we're setting other people aside and just focusing on ourselves. And that's not true. Sometimes the healing work you do, it has an external component, like helping another, but it's just as helpful to other people for you to focus on your healing. And in fact, that's the only part we can control, right? We can contribute to another's healing, but they're in control of it. So if you really want to see healing in this world, it always starts from within. We have a huge impact here. So I feel like the extraordinary prayer here is, may I be filled from within. May I fill myself up from within. May I feel whole and healed from within. And the more that we focus on that, the beautiful things can happen. It's a beautiful way to spread the energy, because the more people find that space, then you carry that energy around you and other people start to feel it. It's like, okay, here's a great example. You know when you're in the presence of a truly confident person, because you will feel very comfortable in their presence. They're so confident in themselves, they're relaxed within themselves, which helps you relax within yourself. And this is the same kind of dynamic, just focused around healing. mental action at this time. Be open to new ideas about the highest and lowest aspects of your hopes and wishes. This ties in really well to the message that they have, because your hopes and wishes can very much be connected to that black hole energy, right? That feeling of I need to get this from outside. And so what they're saying is look at the high and low of it. I want love. That's high. I need it because I'm empty. I don't have it from within. That's the low, right? If someone doesn't give it to me, I don't have any. That would be the lowest aspect of it. That's an example. So we want to be able to look at what it is we desire and kind of read through it. Okay, we're usually connected to the higher end of it, that it'll feel good or it'll bring relief or contentment. But what's underneath that? Why don't you feel like you have that already? And then you'll find the whole. And so this is one way of getting in and getting that information. Physical action at this time. Invent a way to control the situation and do it for the future. I feel like what they're talking about here is a lot of times that black hole need is very strong. Like the need is so strong that it feels like it's almost outside of your control. Like, maybe you hear my story about the tech stuff that I was telling you about, and you're like, yeah, but that's so small, Therese, and that's easy to fix. But this need for being supported, I've never had support. How am I supposed to give that to myself? I've never had the support before. So it's time to acknowledge that that's still a story. And I understand that that might hurt to hear because it's very real to your experience. You may have really lived a life where you really haven't felt supported. But it's still a story and it's still a narrow lens. What I mean by that is in order to successfully believe that story, you literally have to block out any time someone has supported you, whether they wrote a recommendation for you at work, or whether they held your hand or listened to you or picked you up from the airport or said good luck to you before a job interview, whatever it was. You had to block that out in order to believe your story that you're not supported. And unfortunately, when you do that, you're blocking support. So there are people trying to support you, but you've decided it's not the kind of support you need, or it doesn't count as support, and so therefore you never really felt the support. It's complicated when we go through these, right? It's complicated to understand like how much we will build up a story and a parameter around us to protect ourselves. And you've got to look at why. Why do I need to protect myself from seeing this support? And it could be because there's a part of you that's like, I'm afraid that if I acknowledge it, that'll go away too. And so if I don't acknowledge it or I reject it, then I can't lose it, right? So we got to figure out what it is that is causing us to feel that black hole pain and suffering and continue to tell these stories. And that is going to allow us to start healing it, because as long as we're more committed to the story than to our healing, we're going to be replaying the story over and over again. So you got to get clear first, and that's how you can invent the way. What am I more committed to? The story I currently tell myself or healing? And some of these instances may feel small and easy to overcome, and I encourage you to start with the small ones. So whatever, like the tech thing for me, obviously is not the biggest issue in my life, but it's an easy one. It's one I'm willing to relinquish my story over so that I can move forward. And when you start with the small ones, you get a win. And when you get a win, you start to feel pretty confident in yourself that if I can overcome that, what else could I do? Right? And so we work our way up. So you want to figure out your way in. I highly recommend starting small. If you know your biggest issue, like maybe your biggest issue is a support thing, maybe not start there, because it's a daunting one, and your story is about protecting you from something, right? So if you're not ready to let that go, if that protection isn't ready to be relinquished, it's going to be hard to get through that one. So start with a small one. Start with one where you can see it. And how do you find that? It's just this little thing that makes you miserable every time you have to deal with it. Like technology. All right, so now let's look at outcomes for Uranus and Scorpio in the 11th house of hopes and wishes in the future. Your spiritual outcome is an unusual example of purification to resurrect freedom. I really feel like this unusual example has a lot to do with letting go of your stories. Because as we tell our story, it might not seem like it has a powerful hold on us until we let ourselves relinquish it. And when we do, it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize the spell I had cast on myself. And now that I have set myself free from it, well, now I can see why this is so difficult. And now I can see why I get nervous and stressed out every time I have to deal with it. So relinquishing the story, I feel, is the unusual example. Even though we know it's a path we need to take, it still feels unusual because we're not used to living without it. We're not used to being out from under our own spell. Mental outcome at this time, a different way of looking at the secrets of association. And I feel like this connects back to what I just said. So association in this word means like what I make this mean, right? And there's another version of it, which is like who I'm associated with. But I feel like they're talking about associating what I make this mean. And a different way of looking at it, it is a spell. It's a command you're giving yourself. When I tell myself I'm terrible with technology, I am commanding myself to be so. I've cast a spell on myself where I'm now that way, right? It's almost like a form of hypnosis that we're doing. And because we repeat the story, whether it's verbally to other people or just within ourselves, every time we have to deal with or face the thing that brings it up, we're hypnotizing ourselves. We are putting ourselves under a trance and we are just commanding that we behave a certain way. And so I think you're going to start to understand the story and the spell it's casting. Now, we know that we can also use the same thing that we're doing here to create problems, to heal ourselves. The very thing that we're doing that's creating these issues is also the thing that can set us free. We have to tell a new story. You know, in regards to my tech example, I need to acknowledge that I'm actually quite crafty when it comes to technology. And look at all the fun ways I figured out how to get around the things that I couldn't or I didn't want to. See, I tried to do it again. You just caught myself. I didn't want to deal with head on. So I found a creative loop around it. And when I stop and think about it, it makes me kind of smile because I'm like, holy crap, you know, there's a lot of things that got in my way, and yet I figured out a way around it. How creative, how inventive, how unusual. And I have people ask me all the time, like, how did you do this? And how did you do that? And a lot of times I think they're expecting a more straightforward answer from me. And I'm telling them, no, I wanted this to be easy. So I looked for all the ways that I could make it easy on myself. So we need to stop casting the spell. We need to use our words to create a new spell or a new trance or a new command, whatever makes you feel good to say it as. But we're conditioning ourselves all the time to either be more whole and more healed or more hurt and wounded, depending on what story we're telling ourselves. And I think you're going to see this even more this week. It's going to sink in and make sense at a deeper level. It's sure making more sense to me right now as I tell you about it. So I hope it does the same for you. Physical outcome at this time, an unexpected change resulting from the power of your circle of friends. So our circle of friends can be a quite powerful place to find out the stories that we tell ourselves. I was on the phone with a beautiful friend today. You know who you are, because when I say what I say, you'll know what I'm talking about. But she made a point of telling me that I was undercutting myself because, again, I am always looking for the permission to do what I want to do. And so if I feel like I don't have permission, or I'm not in the zone in the right way, or I'm not doing things the way other people are doing it, I tend to deny myself permission. And she lovingly pointed that out to me, that she's been trying to complement my understanding of a certain situation that I understand. I've been doing a lot of studying on narcissism lately, and I really get the psychological disorder and how people with that condition operate, and I'm working on helping people deal with that type of personality and try to understand it better. And so she was complimenting me on my grasp of the situation, and I kept saying, well, I'm not certified, and I'm not a certified therapist, and so I haven't done the official diagnostics you have to do. And I just kept politely, but I was sort of shutting it down. And she lovingly pointed out that I was doing it again. It's like I'm not allowing myself to own the work that I've done and the understanding I have until I have a certain type of approval. And so what I'm pointing out to you is, sometimes if you can't see it for yourself, find a friend that you trust, that you feel very close to, who you've shared enough stuff with, who could sort of help you see where the black holes might be hanging out. And it's okay. We all have them. And our friends can be a great resource for us to look. They're not supposed to fill it for us. That's going to be our job. But they can help us see if we're not able to see it for ourselves. So if you have someone or a couple people within your circle of friends, and again, we're not looking to be judged or have anything like that, but can they point out to you where you keep selling yourself short, or where you keep believing you're not enough, or whatever the hole may be? Can they lead you to it? Can they point it out, or at least show you an aspect of it? And then you can go in and do the deeper digging and tell a better story, because it's time for these stories to end. With that, I am sending you so much love. Mwah. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you in the next Karma Cards. By the way, if you're liking these videos, please help me out. Like, share, subscribe. I am trying to build this channel. It takes a long time, and any way that you can help helps my channel. So for all the people leaving comments, thank you so much. So for all the people leaving comments, thank you so much. I am still getting used to this microphone. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. I'm really enjoying this microphone. A little too much today. I hope the audio quality is really good in this video, and I will see you next week.